Have you ever felt life hit you so hard that you froze for a moment, unsure whether to fight, flee, or crumble? That pause, that split second, is where true power begins. Not in anger, not in fear, but in the calm you can summon when everyone expects a reaction. The world waits for you to act. What if you discovered the secret that only a few ever learn? The secret of responding instead of reacting. Part 1. The power of stillness. James had always been a man of action. In business, in life, in every argument he moved fast. He believed speed was strength, and that showing emotion meant showing weakness. But life, as it often does, had other plans. It started one morning in his office. A report arrived, filled with mistakes he did not make. His colleague, Daniel, laughed openly at the errors, mocking the work James had spent weeks perfecting. James felt a rush of heat, the familiar tug of anger. His first instinct was to lash out, to defend, to correct. But then he paused. Just for a second. In that second, he realized something he had never understood before. The world does not always hit you with fairness. Insults, mistakes, betrayal, they are not just obstacles. They are tests. How you respond to them defines your life. James remembered a lesson he had read long ago. The man who can master himself in the face of chaos wields a power greater than any storm. At that moment, he decided not to react. He let Daniel's laughter roll over him like water over stone. He did not defend, did not argue. Instead, he took a breath, held his composure, and focused on what truly mattered, solving the problem. This was not weakness. It was strategy. While others surrender their power to emotion, the wise reclaim it. Anger, fear, frustration, these are messengers, not masters. They tell you something is wrong, but they do not tell you how to respond. That choice is yours. James started practicing this choice every day. In traffic jams, when people cut him off, he remained calm. In meetings, when colleagues tried to undermine him, he listened, observed, and acted only when action would serve a purpose. At first, it felt unnatural. Old habits die hard. His heart raced. The temptation to shout, to fight back, to prove himself, was strong. But he trained himself to pause. To see the moment clearly before making a move. The results were remarkable. People who once tried to manipulate him began to notice a change. They could not predict his reactions, and in their confusion, they respected him more. Calmness became a shield. Silence became a tool. The storms around him did not disappear, but James had discovered a hidden truth. The storm does not define your life, your response does. One evening, James attended a networking event. A prominent entrepreneur, known for his harsh criticism, singled him out during a panel discussion. The entrepreneur mocked his strategies, belittled his achievements, and tried to provoke a fight. For a moment, James felt the old instinct, the familiar surge of indignation. He could feel the eyes of the audience waiting for a response, expecting sparks. But instead of reacting, he smiled quietly, nodded, and continued his point with calm clarity. The room changed. The energy shifted. The entrepreneur's aggression lost its power. Calm had become authority. By refusing to react, James had turned potential conflict into strength. He had learned the first law of personal power. The one who controls the pause controls the moment. James' story is not unique. Every person faces situations that test their patience, their courage, their focus. Insults, betrayals, failures, they are inevitable. But the person who can stand still, who can observe instead of reacting, begins to master life itself. Reaction gives power away. Response reclaims it. The key is practice. Start small. Notice when an emotion rises. Name it. This is anger. This is fear. This is disappointment. Naming it gives you control. Then ask yourself, does this feeling serve my purpose? If yes, use it. If no, let it pass. This simple habit trains the mind, strengthens the spirit, and builds resilience. James learned that being still does not mean being passive. It does not mean avoiding action. It means acting intentionally, with full awareness. It means letting others reveal their hand while you remain unshaken, letting the world's chaos pass through you while your focus remains clear. It means living by principle, not by impulse. By the end of the year, James had transformed his life. His business grew, not because he fought every battle, but because he chose which battles to fight. His relationships improved, not because he defended every slight, but because he listened more than he spoke. And most importantly, he discovered a quiet confidence that no storm could touch. In life, moments of crisis will come. The question is not whether they will happen, they will. The question is, will you react and hand over your power, or will you pause, breathe, and respond with the strength of stillness? James' journey had just begun, but already he understood a principle that many never learn. Real power begins the moment you stop reacting and start choosing. That choice is the foundation of everything else: success, freedom, purpose, and peace. Take a breath. Pause. Notice. The moment you do, you are no longer a passenger in life. You are the driver. The storms may rage, the waves may rise, but your inner calm is a fortress. And inside that fortress, you hold the keys to your destiny. If you want, I can immediately continue with parts 2 to 6, keeping each part around 1,000 words, building the story like Napoleon Hill's narrative style, covering resilience, focus, emotional mastery, and ultimate success. Do you want me to continue all 6 parts now? Here's part 2 of your motivational story, rewritten in a Napoleon Hill-inspired story style, with an engaging hook, easy and simple English for an American audience, and about 1,000 words. This follows naturally from part 1. Engaging hook. Imagine walking into a room where everyone is shouting, arguing, and trying to prove themselves. What if I told you the person who speaks the least, moves the slowest, and carries the calmest energy often has the greatest influence? The world may mistake quiet for weakness, but it is the quiet who hold the true power. Part 2. The currency of calm. Evelyn had always been sensitive to the world around her. Criticism felt like fire on her skin, doubt like ice on her bones. She tried to keep up with everyone, matching their energy, defending herself, proving her worth. It exhausted her. One evening, after a meeting where her ideas were dismissed and mocked, she returned home with her mind in chaos. She felt small, unseen, defeated, but that night something shifted. She remembered a lesson she had read in a book by a man who studied success and human nature for decades. It said that true power does not come from reaction, but from composed action. That the calm mind carries authority louder than any yell, clearer than any speech, deeper than any applause. Evelyn decided to test it. The next morning, she woke before sunrise. Instead of reaching for her phone and diving into the noise of the world, she stepped outside. The sky was soft, the air still. She breathed slowly, deliberately, letting the calm fill her chest and settle in her mind. She realized that her energy had been leaking to the chaos around her. The world had been broadcasting into her mind, and she had allowed it to dictate her inner state. That day, she decided it would no longer happen. Evelyn started small. At work, when someone dismissed her idea, she paused. Instead of reacting with anger or defensiveness, she asked one question silently: how does this serve my purpose? Often, she realized it did not. Responding impulsively only fed the noise and distracted her from her goal. By staying calm, she reclaimed her energy. She began noticing a change. People unconsciously respected her. Her quiet composure was commanding attention, more than any argument or explanation could point. One afternoon, she walked into a workshop where tempers flared over a disagreement about resources. The room crackled with tension. Evelyn's first instinct was to raise her voice, to assert herself. But she remembered the principle she was practicing: calm is not weakness. It is strategy. She let the argument run its course without participating. She observed, listening closely to the frustrations, fears, and ambitions of others. Then, when a pause came, she spoke. Her words were measured, clear, and purposeful. The room quieted. Her calm had not only silenced the chaos, it had shifted it. People began aligning with her point of view without even realizing it. She began to see calm as a rare currency. It could be spent, but only wisely. Each time she reacted impulsively, she gave away power. Each time she maintained composure, she strengthened her influence. She learned to carry her energy like treasure, not to be squandered on petty disputes or fleeting provocations. Her presence became magnetic because it was rooted in control, not ego. Evelyn also understood the law of reflection. The world mirrors the energy you broadcast. When she walked into a room with uncertainty, fear, or tension in her mind, she noticed the people around her responded with agitation or doubt. But when she anchored herself in calm, her clarity and confidence rippled outward. Opportunities opened, conversations became productive, and her influence grew naturally. The room listened, not because she demanded attention, but because she radiated authority. She applied this principle in everyday life as well. On the street, when someone cut her off, she did not yell. She breathed. In personal conversations, when criticism or envy appeared, she did not defend herself. She observed, labeled the emotion, and asked if engaging would serve her purpose. Most of the time, it did not. Her calm became a shield against chaos and a tool to protect her focus. Evelyn also began designing her daily life to cultivate this energy. She woke early, before the noise of the world arrived. She walked beneath the sky, reading words that expanded her thinking. She reflected before acting, ensuring her decisions were aligned with her mission, not external pressure. She chose companions who elevated her mind, not those who drained her spirit. Slowly, her inner world became anchored. Her external world reflected this grounding. She felt a strength she had never known. Her transformation was not sudden, and it was not dramatic. There were moments when old instincts tried to return, when criticism stung and impatience whispered. But each time, she paused, named the emotion, and made a choice. This is what Napoleon Hill called the practice of self-mastery, the discipline to respond intentionally rather than react impulsively. Every small victory built her resilience, shaping her into someone unshakable. One evening, she faced her greatest test yet. A client, known for intimidation and harsh words, tried to provoke her during a critical negotiation. His tone was loud, his words sharp. For a moment, the old Evelyn, the reactive, defensive Evelyn, wanted to fight back. But she paused. She took a deep breath, grounded herself, and observed. She realized that her calm could do what anger never could. It could command attention, create clarity, and move the conversation toward her purpose. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, her posture confident, her words precise. The client's aggression faded, replaced by listening and respect. Her calm had not just preserved her power, it had amplified it. She had learned the first law of influence. Presence is more persuasive than words. Authority resides in the one who holds composure, not in the one who raises their voice. That night, Evelyn reflected on her journey. She understood that calm is not something you buy or fake. It is forged in experience, honed in adversity, and sustained by intention. It is rare, and when cultivated, it becomes a force stronger than fear, louder than argument, and more enduring than circumstance. It is a currency that enriches every area of life, work, relationships, and self-respect. She also realized that calm does not mean suppression of feeling. It is not denial. It is mastery. By observing emotions, labeling them, and deciding which to act on, she had reclaimed the driver's seat of her life. She was no longer moved by the chaos of the world. She moved with it, but not for it. Her presence had become a signal, a curriculum teaching others how to respond to her, not by intimidation, but by demonstration. Evelyn's final lesson for the day was simple. Power begins within. Guard your calm. Shape your presence. Broadcast clarity and purpose, and the world will respond. Every moment you resist reaction and choose response, you invest in a life of influence, focus, and enduring strength. She went to sleep that night knowing she was no longer a passenger. Calm had become her foundation, and with it, she could build anything. The storms would come. People would provoke. Life would test her. But now, Evelyn carried a treasure that no noise could steal. She carried the currency of calm, and with it, the power to shape her destiny. If you like, I can continue with part 3 next, keeping the same story-driven, Napoleon Hill-inspired style, building deeper lessons on purpose, emotional mastery, and resilience. Do you want me to continue with part 3 now? Here's part 3 of your motivational story, rewritten in a Napoleon Hill-inspired story style, with an engaging hook, easy and simple English for an American audience, and approximately 1,000 words. This continues naturally from part 2. Engaging hook. What if the most dangerous trap to your success wasn't failure, but offense? What if every insult, criticism, or doubt was simply a test of your control? The difference between those who drift and those who rise is not what they face, it's how they respond. Part 3. Rise above offense. Jason had always been quick to anger. Even small slights would ignite a fire in his chest. A colleague questioning his plan, a friend doubting his decision, even strangers casting judgment. Every remark felt like a personal attack. He chased validation, trying to prove himself in every conversation, every disagreement, every conflict. It worked for a while. People noticed him, responded to him, and he felt a sense of temporary control. But that control was expensive. It demanded his energy, attention, and focus. By the time he returned to his real work, he was drained, frustrated, and sometimes resentful. He realized he was reacting more than building. One evening, Jason read a passage in a book about human mastery and success. It struck him. It explained that the most dangerous threat to progress is not failure. It is offense. Offense hijacks your mind, steals your energy, and diverts you from your mission. The words lingered in his mind as he reflected on his day. Every time he reacted to a slight, every time he defended his pride, he had stolen time from building his future. The next morning, he decided to test a new approach. Instead of responding to insults or criticism, he would pause. He would observe. He would ask himself a single question: does reacting serve my purpose? It started small. A coworker laughed at his proposal during a team meeting. Jason felt the old instinct to snap, to defend, to prove himself. But he paused. He reminded himself that his mission was bigger than this moment. He returned to his work silently, letting his results speak louder than words ever could. Over time, he noticed a shift. People began to respect him not because of the volume of his voice, but because of the consistency of his results. Jason began to understand the cost of pride. Pride demands attention. Purpose demands action. Every moment spent defending your image is a moment stolen from creating your legacy. He thought of an artist interrupted mid-brushstroke by a passerby's criticism. How foolish to stop creating in order to argue. Every time you react to offense, you interrupt your own masterpiece. He realized he was not his title, his applause, or his critics. He was not even his past achievements. He was the work, the vision, the process, the effort that he poured into every day. Offense no longer had the power to move him because he anchored himself in the work itself, not in the approval of others. Jason also discovered the power of silence. He realized that speaking constantly in response to offense only amplified the noise. Silence, chosen intentionally, carried authority that words could never achieve. At first, it felt uncomfortable. He was conditioned to fill space, defend himself, and prove his worth. But gradually, silence became a tool. It allowed him to observe, to understand, and to act with precision rather than emotion. One afternoon, during a heated meeting, a colleague raised their voice, dismissing Jason's plan with sarcasm. Jason's first instinct was to argue. But he paused. He listened. He noticed the insecurity behind the words, the tension in the room, and the fleeting need for validation in the voice of his critic. Then he spoke. His words were calm, measured, and intentional. The room quieted. The focus shifted. His silence had amplified his influence. He learned that offense is a test. It is not a threat unless you allow it to be. It reveals your emotional maturity, your self-control, and your capacity to lead yourself. Every insult, every doubt, every challenge is a fork in the road. You can react and give away your power, or you can reflect and reclaim control. Reaction is instinctive. Reflection is mastery. Jason also discovered the value of solitude. Early mornings became his sanctuary. Before the world woke, he would sit with his thoughts, free from distractions. He would journal, breathe, and reflect on his purpose. These moments of quiet allowed him to strengthen his center, fortify his focus, and clarify his mission. Solitude became a tool to cultivate calm, resilience, and precision. He realized that strength grows not in noise and chaos, but in deliberate stillness. Over time, he began to see offense differently. It was not a personal attack. It was a mirror reflecting the other person's insecurities and fears. Their words were sparks, not fires. He did not need to fuel them with reaction. Instead, he focused his energy on creation, not confrontation. Silence became his shield. Stillness became his sword. Jason's transformation was evident in small moments. A neighbor ridiculed his ambitious plans. The old Jason would have argued. The new Jason smiled, returned to his work, and let his results speak. Colleagues who once doubted him became followers of his vision. His calm presence commanded respect, not because he shouted, but because he acted with unwavering focus. He began to budget his energy like currency. Every reaction has a cost, every defense drains your emotional account. By choosing silence and action over reaction and ego, he conserved his energy for what truly mattered. He became wealthy, not in applause or approval, but in focus, clarity, and momentum. Jason learned that offense is inevitable. People will doubt, criticize, and provoke. But you are not required to engage. You can meet every slight with reflection, every insult with calm, and every provocation with purpose. In doing so, you protect your time, your focus, and your peace. That is true power. He discovered a principle he began to teach others. Purpose is louder than pride. Action speaks louder than words. Vision eclipses offense. Those who chase validation are like leaves in the wind, tossed by every opinion. Those who rise above offense walk deliberately, anchored in truth, and guided by mission. Jason's life began to change. Meetings became arenas for influence rather than conflict. Relationships deepened because he responded with presence, not provocation. His work progressed without interruption because he no longer allowed noise to steal his attention. Silence became his strategy, calm his authority, and purpose his guide. He realized that offense touches a wound within us. It is often a test of self-awareness. Do you react because your identity is insecure, or because your purpose is incomplete? Reflection allows you to grow stronger. It allows you to rise above noise and build your legacy. Jason understood that mastery of reaction is mastery of self. Energy spent defending ego is energy stolen from creation. Silence, stillness, and focus are the currency of those who lead their lives intentionally. Every pause is a brick in the fortress of your character. Every moment of reflection strengthens your inner power. He reflected on the analogy of fire. Fire warms, cooks, and creates. But scattered, uncontrolled, it destroys. So it is with energy. Scatter it on offense and distraction, and nothing grows. Conserve it for creation, and it fuels your purpose. Every word not spoken, every argument not entered, every provocation not chased becomes fuel for your mission. Jason walked into the world differently now. He was no longer a leaf in the wind. He was the one directing the flow. Offense no longer dictated his steps. Noise no longer disrupted his focus. Criticism no longer stole his energy. He had become unshakable, not through volume, but through restraint. Not through reaction, but through reflection. And in this quiet mastery, he discovered the secret Napoleon Hill had described. The person who governs themselves is stronger than the person who controls others. Real power lies not in shouting or defending, but in the ability to move through life with purpose, presence, and unbroken focus. Jason had learned to rise above offense. He had learned that silence is strategy, stillness is strength, and reflection is power. And as he built, day by day, with intention and calm, he became unstoppable. Not because the world could hear him, but because his life spoke louder than any noise. If you want, I can continue with part 4 next, further developing the story with resilience, emotional mastery, and the law of focus, keeping the same easy, American-friendly, Napoleon Hill-inspired style. Do you want me to continue with part 4 now? Here's part 4 of your motivational story, rewritten in a Napoleon Hill-inspired story style, with an engaging hook, easy and simple English for an American audience, and approximately 1,000 words. Engaging hook. Have you ever wondered why some people seem unstoppable while others crumble at the smallest challenge? It is not talent, luck, or opportunity. It is focus. The person who masters focus does not chase distractions. They harness energy, direct it, and build their destiny brick by brick. Part 4. The power of focus. Samantha had always been bright. She had ideas that could change her world, dreams that could transform her career. But for years, she had felt like she was running in circles. Every day, a new email, a new call, a new distraction pulled her away from the work that mattered. By evening, she was exhausted, frustrated, and unsure if anything had moved forward. One evening, she met an old mentor, Mr. Callahan. He was a man who had built empires quietly, without shouting or chasing attention. His advice changed her perspective. He said, "Focus is the master key to achievement. Without it, effort is wasted." Without it, energy drifts like a leaf in the wind. With focus, one can move mountains. Samantha realized how much of her energy she had given away. She had spent hours defending opinions, reacting to criticism, and engaging in small, meaningless tasks. Her mind had been like a cluttered desk, full of papers, reminders, and half-finished projects. Her mentor told her a simple truth: energy spent on distractions is energy stolen from destiny. The next morning, Samantha decided to try something new. She began with a question: what is the one thing I must accomplish today that moves me closer to my purpose? Everything else became secondary. She closed unnecessary tabs, silenced notifications, and focused on the single most important task of the day. At first, it was difficult. The habit of distraction was ingrained. Her mind resisted. Every notification felt urgent, every minor interruption seemed important. But Samantha persisted. She discovered that the more she ignored the noise, the more clarity she gained. Her ideas became sharper, her decisions faster, and her progress undeniable. She realized that focus is not just concentration. Focus is discipline. It is a conscious choice to invest energy only in what serves your mission. Napoleon Hill had written that the person who directs their mind with intent can achieve anything because the mind is the master tool of creation. Samantha began to see how true this was. Focus, she discovered, was like a magnifying glass. The sun's rays can be gentle when diffused, but when focused on a single point, they can ignite fire. Similarly, scattered energy produces little impact. Focused energy can move mountains, build empires, and create legacies. She started seeing her own distractions as diluted power, weakening her potential. One afternoon, Samantha faced a test. She was working on a critical project, a plan that could determine her next career step. Her phone buzzed, her colleagues asked questions, and her inbox piled up. The old Samantha would have jumped at every interruption. The new Samantha paused. She took a deep breath. She asked herself, "Does this serve my purpose?" And for every distraction that did not, she said no. Hours later, she completed her project. Not hurriedly, not frantically, but with precision, clarity, and excellence. The results amazed her colleagues. They did not know the internal battle she had fought against distraction. What they saw was mastery, focus, and the power of calm determination. Samantha began to understand a profound truth. Focus is not just a habit. It is a mindset. It is a shield against chaos, a compass in the storm, and a bridge to your vision. Every time she allowed herself to be distracted, she lost not just time but energy, peace, and confidence. Every time she reclaimed focus, she regained power. She also learned the importance of boundaries. To focus, one must protect time and space. Samantha started to guard her mornings. No calls, no emails, no interruptions. She used the first hours of the day to think, plan, and create. She discovered that when the mind is calm and undisturbed, it produces clarity that noise and chaos can never deliver. Napoleon Hill had emphasized that success comes to those who think clearly, plan deliberately, and act decisively. Samantha realized that focus was the engine that drove all three. Without focus, clear thinking was impossible. Without focus, deliberate planning was futile. Without focus, decisive action was weak. Focus became a habit. It shaped every part of her life. When she spoke with intention. When she worked with purpose. When she listened to understand, not to react. Her energy was no longer scattered. It was concentrated. It was powerful. She faced challenges, of course. Some days, distractions were relentless. Colleagues demanded attention, clients needed urgent replies, and life threw unexpected problems. But Samantha had learned the law of focus. Energy spent on what matters multiplies. Energy spent on noise diminishes. She began to see that the secret of achievement was not to do more, but to do what matters most, without compromise. Samantha also learned the power of saying no. Every no was a yes to her mission. Every refusal to engage in petty conflicts, trivial debates, or meaningless distractions strengthened her focus. Napoleon Hill had written that the power to concentrate is the root of all achievement. Samantha lived this principle every day. One morning, she reflected on her progress. In 3 months, she had accomplished more than she had in the previous year. projects completed, ideas implemented, recognition earned. Not because she had worked harder, but because she had worked smarter. Because she had focused. She realized focus is more than efficiency. It is resilience. The more she concentrated on her mission, the less noise could penetrate her mind. Criticism no longer destabilized her. Doubt no longer distracted her. Offense no longer hijacked her energy. She had become unshakable. Samantha also noticed something remarkable. As she strengthened her focus, her clarity of purpose grew. She no longer felt pulled in 10 directions at once. She knew what mattered and what did not. Her decisions became faster, her actions more precise, and her vision sharper. Focus had unlocked her potential. By the end of the quarter, her career had shifted. Opportunities appeared that she had not anticipated. Her colleagues sought her guidance. Her mentors noticed her growth. And all of it had begun with one simple choice each morning: to focus on what truly mattered. Samantha learned that focus is the bridge between desire and accomplishment. Energy, when directed deliberately, becomes unstoppable. Time, when guarded and invested, yields extraordinary returns. And calm, when paired with purpose, becomes power. She often reflected on a principle Napoleon Hill had written: the mind is the master tool. What you think about, you bring about. But the mind can only work at its full power when it is concentrated, undistracted, and aligned with purpose. Samantha now understood this fully. Focus was no longer a tool, it was her lifestyle. It shaped her mornings, her afternoons, and her evenings. It dictated her decisions, her speech, and her actions. Every distraction avoided, every pause taken before reacting, every moment of intentional effort built her inner strength. She had become a master of her attention, and in doing so, a master of her life. Samantha realized at last that mastery is not measured by the hours you work, the noise you make, or the battles you win. It is measured by the energy you conserve, the attention you invest, and the clarity you maintain. The person who governs their focus governs their destiny. And in that clarity, in that unwavering attention to purpose, Samantha had discovered a truth that would guide her forever. Power is not in doing everything. Power is in doing what matters most with precision, discipline, and calm. If you want, I can continue with part 5 next, focusing on resilience, emotional mastery, and using focus to overcome obstacles, keeping the same easy, American-friendly, Napoleon Hill-inspired story style. Do you want me to continue with part 5 now? Here's part 5 of your motivational story, rewritten in a Napoleon Hill-inspired story style, with an engaging hook, easy and simple English for an American audience, and approximately 1,000 words. Engaging hook. Have you noticed how some people seem to bend life to their will while others are tossed around by every setback? It is not luck. It is resilience. The ability to rise after failure, to remain grounded amid chaos, and to keep moving toward your vision no matter what. That is what separates the average from the extraordinary. Part 5. Resilience and emotional mastery. Ethan had always been ambitious. From a young age, he dreamed of building a company that would change lives. But the path was never smooth. Investors said no, clients withdrew contracts, and competitors seemed to anticipate every move he made. Many would have given up, but Ethan remembered the lessons of those who had succeeded before him. He had read Napoleon Hill's teachings and understood one principle clearly: adversity is the crucible of greatness. Every obstacle, every failure, every disappointment was not a barrier. It was a test, a chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more determined. Ethan realized that most people react to adversity with frustration, fear, or anger. Their emotions become the driver, and the outcome is almost always negative. But he chose a different path. He decided that no matter what happened, he would respond with composure, clarity, and focus on solutions. He would not allow external events to hijack his mind or spirit. One afternoon, a significant setback occurred. A major deal he had been negotiating for months fell through. His team looked defeated. Ethan felt the sting himself, but he remembered a simple principle: the strongest people do not crumble when events are beyond their control. They rise above them. Instead of reacting, Ethan paused. He gathered his team. He did not blame anyone. He did not vent his frustration. Instead, he analyzed what went wrong, identified the lessons, and outlined the next steps. In that moment, his calm and composed response shifted the energy of the room. His team regained confidence, and momentum was restored. He reflected on Hill's principle that emotion, when mastered, becomes a source of power. Anger, fear, disappointment, even grief, these emotions are not enemies. They are indicators. They show where attention is needed, where adjustment is required, and where growth is possible. Ethan began to practice emotional mastery daily. Each morning, he asked himself, what emotions might try to control me today? How will I respond if things go wrong? How can I convert frustration into fuel, doubt into determination, and fear into focus? He started to see his emotions not as threats but as tools. One day, a competitor launched a campaign that directly targeted Ethan's business. The words were sharp, the messaging personal, and many of his colleagues wanted to respond immediately. But Ethan remembered the rule: reaction is often the enemy of progress. Response is the ally of power. He instructed his team to focus on their work, to strengthen their product, and to let results speak for themselves. While others engaged in arguments, Ethan doubled down on creation. Months later, his company's success silenced critics and overshadowed the attacks. His calm endurance had created more influence than any heated response ever could. Ethan also discovered the importance of self-awareness and resilience. He paid attention to how his mind reacted to stress, how his body felt during tension, and how his heart responded to setbacks. This awareness allowed him to pause before acting, to choose response over reaction, and to convert potential losses into lessons for growth. Resilience, he realized, was not just about enduring hardship. It was about learning from it, adapting and improving. Every failed meeting, every lost contract, every criticism was an opportunity to refine strategy, strengthen skill, and sharpen focus. In adversity, the mind grows sharper, the heart stronger, and the vision clearer. Ethan began teaching this to his team. He showed them that resilience was not stubbornness. It was disciplined flexibility. It was the courage to continue when the easy path was surrender. It was the strength to maintain composure when chaos surrounded them. And most importantly, it was the awareness that external events could never dictate internal states unless permission was given. He shared a story from his past. Early in his career, he had launched a product that failed spectacularly. Sales numbers were dismal. Investors pulled out. Colleagues questioned his judgment. Many would have taken the failure personally. Ethan took it as a teacher. He examined every detail, learned what worked, discarded what didn't, and returned with a refined product that eventually became a massive success. From that experience, he learned a critical truth: resilience is not the absence of failure. It is the presence of courage, the ability to rise after falling, and the determination to continue despite setbacks. People who are not resilient give up at the first sign of trouble. People who are resilient see trouble as a stepping stone. Ethan also learned that emotional mastery protects focus. When emotions control the mind, decisions are reactionary, not strategic. Energy is wasted. Productivity collapses. Clarity disappears. But when the mind governs emotion, every choice is deliberate, every action is purposeful, and every setback becomes a lesson rather than a threat. He adopted daily practices to strengthen his emotional resilience. Each morning, he reflected on potential challenges. He prepared mentally for obstacles, visualized solutions, and rehearsed calm responses. Each evening, he reviewed the day, celebrated victories, and acknowledged lessons from mistakes. This cycle created mental and emotional muscle that allowed him to respond to life with strength rather than anxiety. Ethan noticed a remarkable transformation. People were drawn to his presence. His calm, composed demeanor inspired trust. His team followed without coercion. Clients and partners respected his leadership. His ability to stay steady in adversity became his superpower. Napoleon Hill had written that adversity and defeat are two of the greatest teachers if one is willing to learn. Ethan lived this truth daily. He began to see challenges not as obstacles, but as invitations to grow. He began to expect adversity, not with fear, but with readiness. And in doing so, he became unshakable. He understood the final principle of emotional mastery: the mind is the governor of life. When it is disciplined, focused, and composed, no external force can shake it. But when the mind is uncontrolled, the smallest insult, setback, or distraction can derail destiny. Energy is lost, progress stalls, and confidence erodes. By mastering emotions, Ethan unlocked a new level of power. He discovered that the difference between success and stagnation is not talent alone. It is not luck. It is resilience, the ability to endure, adapt, and advance without losing composure or clarity. Ethan's journey taught him that every person faces storms. It is not the presence of storms that defines greatness. It is the way storms are navigated. The one who reacts impulsively drifts. The one who responds deliberately sails forward. The one who masters emotion and strengthens resilience transforms every challenge into opportunity. By the end of the year, Ethan's company had grown beyond expectation. Challenges that would have derailed most were transformed into stepping stones. His reputation for calm, clarity, and strategic brilliance became known. And it all began with a decision: to master focus, to govern emotion, and to rise resiliently in the face of adversity. He realized finally that resilience is not a trait some people are born with. It is a skill that can be developed, practiced, and strengthened. Every setback is a chance to train. Every criticism is a chance to sharpen. Every failure is a chance to fortify. Those who master it gain power beyond measure. And in mastering resilience, Ethan discovered the ultimate truth Napoleon Hill taught: you are not the product of circumstance. You are the architect of your destiny. By governing your emotions, focusing your mind, and enduring adversity with courage, you rise above chaos and shape your future with intention. If you like, I can write part 6 next, which will focus on purpose, legacy, and tying together all lessons from the previous 5 parts into an inspiring conclusion, keeping the same story style for American readers. Do you want me to continue with part 6 now? Here's part 6, final part, of your 6-part Napoleon Hill-inspired motivational series, rewritten in an engaging story style for American readers, using easy and simple language, with a strong hook and a call to action. Engaging hook. Have you ever wondered why some people leave a mark on the world while others fade quietly? The difference is not talent, luck, or circumstance. It is purpose. The person who lives with intention, acts with discipline, and rises above every challenge, this is the person who shapes their destiny. Today, you will discover how to turn vision into reality and leave a legacy that lasts. Part 6, Purpose, Legacy, and the Mastery of Life. Jacob stood at the edge of his office window, looking out over the city. Years ago, he had been unsure of his direction. Life felt like a series of distractions, opinions, and random opportunities. He had chased approval, feared failure, and reacted to every insult or challenge that came his way. But now, after years of practice, he understood the truth. The secret to greatness is living for purpose, not applause. He remembered the lessons from his mentors, and the words of Napoleon Hill echoed in his mind. Mastery of self, control of emotion, and focus on a clear vision, these were the foundations of success. But the final piece, the piece that transformed all effort into enduring impact, was purpose. Without purpose, all discipline, resilience, and skill are like ships without rudders. Jacob had discovered that purpose acts as a compass. It directs every action, filters every decision, and shields the mind from distraction. It tells him where to invest energy, where to remain silent, and where to act boldly. He recalled an early mistake. He had spent months arguing with a critic, only to find the distraction had stolen time from his real mission. That lesson was costly but invaluable. Purpose, Jacob realized, makes offense meaningless. When your energy is invested in your mission, insults, setbacks, and doubts from others lose power. They are just noise. The critic's words cannot undo the hours you have spent building, learning, and creating. The voice of purpose is louder than every attack, every doubt, every moment of fear. He thought about his team. Many of them had struggled with self-doubt. They had allowed external opinions to dictate their effort. Jacob knew the key was to teach them to anchor their energy in something higher than criticism or approval. He shared with them a simple but powerful principle: you are not what others say about you. You are what you create, what you build, and the impact you leave behind. Jacob remembered a turning point. Early in his career, a rival had tried to sabotage one of his projects. The moment could have been devastating. He could have reacted with anger, retaliation, and rash decisions. Instead, he paused, reflected, and chose action guided by purpose. He focused entirely on delivering value. Months later, his work spoke for itself, and his rival's efforts became irrelevant. That day he learned a life-altering truth: The person who focuses on legacy never gets distracted by petty conflict. He began to view every challenge as a stepping stone. Every criticism was an opportunity to refine strategy. Every failure was an invitation to grow stronger. Jacob understood now that adversity was not a curse but a teacher. Those who avoided difficulty never developed the strength to lead. Those who faced it with discipline, clarity, and purpose became unstoppable. Jacob also discovered the power of time. Napoleon Hill had taught that time is the most valuable resource. Once spent, it cannot be reclaimed. Most people squander it reacting to minor annoyances, worrying about outcomes they cannot control, or chasing approval from those who will never understand. Jacob decided that every moment must be invested wisely. He treated his hours like currency, allocating them to creation, learning, and building impact. He began each day with intention. Before checking messages or listening to the world, he asked himself, what will I build today? What will I contribute? How will my actions align with the mission I have set for my life? This question transformed every day. It made distractions invisible. It made criticism irrelevant. It gave him power over his own focus. Jacob also realized the importance of self-mastery. Control of emotion, energy, and attention was not just a skill, it was a superpower. He had learned to pause before reacting, to measure the cost of every word and action, and to respond only in ways that advanced his purpose. Each choice to act deliberately reinforced his authority over his life and destiny. As he mentored others, Jacob saw a pattern. People who lacked focus on purpose often became victims of life's chaos. They drifted, chasing fleeting rewards and letting emotion dictate behavior. But those who anchored themselves in a higher mission moved with precision, confidence, and influence. They did not ask permission to succeed. They simply aligned their actions with their vision. Jacob recalled a lesson from Hill. Success is the combined result of a definiteness of purpose, persistence, and the ability to make decisions promptly and clearly. Jacob had spent years cultivating these traits. Every choice was deliberate. Every effort aligned with his larger vision. And now, he was witnessing the payoff, not only in wealth and recognition but in the ability to lead, inspire, and leave a lasting mark. Purpose, he reflected, is also the ultimate motivator. It fuels resilience when obstacles arise. It sustains energy when fatigue tempts inaction. It transforms setbacks into stepping stones. Jacob had learned to see failure not as defeat, but as feedback. Every lesson learned, every skill acquired, every risk taken with integrity, became part of the foundation of his legacy. He also understood the true meaning of legacy. Legacy is not fame or money. It is the impact on people, the transformation created, the inspiration left behind. It is the life lessons transmitted through example, not words. A person who lives with clarity, integrity, and purpose leaves a ripple that extends far beyond their immediate actions. Jacob's final insight was this: life rewards those who rise above reaction, discipline their energy, and move with purpose. The world may reward noise temporarily, but lasting influence belongs to the focused, the resilient, and the intentional. Every storm faced with composure, every challenge met with clarity, every obstacle overcome with strategy builds the fortress of personal power. As he looked out over the city, Jacob understood that mastery is not the absence of difficulty. It is the ability to navigate difficulty without losing vision or composure. It is the consistent alignment of thought, emotion, and action with a higher purpose. And it is this alignment that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. He smiled, knowing his work was far from done. But he also knew that by living in accordance with purpose, by conserving his energy, mastering his emotions, and focusing relentlessly on contribution, he had unlocked a force within himself that no obstacle could defeat. Jacob turned from the window and faced his team. He shared with them the last lesson he had learned through years of experience. Live deliberately, build persistently, and anchor yourself in purpose. Let the noise of the world wash over you without shaking your resolve. Let adversity be your teacher, not your enemy. And remember, the legacy you leave is not in the words you speak but in the lives you touch, the vision you create, and the results you produce. He concluded, your power begins within. Your influence grows from your discipline. Your greatness is forged in the calm mastery of your mind, the courage to face adversity, and the clarity of purpose that guides every step. Call to action. If this story inspired you, make sure to subscribe for more content that empowers your mind, Share this with someone who needs a boost today, and leave a comment sharing what step you will take next to live with purpose. Your journey to mastery begins now.